The village of Lumina was not like other villages. It nestled in the heart of the Whisperwind Valley, cradled by ancient, luminous trees whose leaves shimmered with an inner light even on the darkest nights. But it was the sky above Lumina that truly set it apart. Here, the stars did not merely twinkle, they pulsed, they glowed, they spilled their light in such abundance that the night was often brighter than the softest dawn. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, and if the cosmic currents were just right, a gentle rain of pure shimmering stardust would drift down, blanketing the village in a fine, glittering powder. Elara knew the feel of stardust better than she knew the feel of her own worn blanket. It was cool and soft, like powdered moonlight, and it hummed with a delicate, almost inaudible song when you held it close. Her grandmother, Lyra, always said it was the song of forgotten dreams, making their way back to the waking world. Elara, with her 9 years of wonder-filled living, believed her. Her small cottage, like all homes in Lumina, was built from smooth, pale stones that absorbed the starlight during the night and radiated a soft, comforting glow during the day. Its roof was partially open, a wide, circular aperture that allowed the celestial tapestry to unfurl directly above her bed. Every night, Elara would lie there, her long, silvery hair spread across her pillow like a spill of moonlight, watching the constellations drift by. She knew them all by name: the Great Bear, the Whispering Serpent, the Laughing Lion, and her favorite, the Sleepy Shepherd, whose flock of tiny stars always seemed to lag a little behind the rest. In Lumina, life revolved around the stars. The villagers were not farmers or merchants, but star tenders and dream weavers, sky cartographers and stardust collectors. It was the stardust that sustained them, not as food but as lifeblood. Woven into their clothes, it kept them warm. Mixed into paints, it made their homes glow. Sprinkled into the soil, it made the bioluminescent flora of the valley burst forth in vibrant hues. And most importantly, stardust was believed to be the raw material of dreams, imbuing them with color, magic, and the gentle whisper of possibility. Without stardust, the elders said, dreams would be gray and thin, and the world itself would lose its luster. Elara's grandmother, Lyra, was one of the most respected stardust collectors. Her hands, though gnarled with age, still moved with the grace of a falling leaf as she sifted the precious motes into shimmering jars. Lyra had taught Elara how to distinguish the different types of stardust: the vibrant, energetic dawn glow, perfect for waking dreams and new beginnings; the serene, soothing moon whisper, ideal for calming fears and aiding slumber; and the rare, potent deep sky sparkle, said to hold the secrets of forgotten times. Tonight, however, as Elara watched from her window, something felt subtly off. The stars were still brilliant, yes, but the usual effervescence, the shimmering dance of falling particles, was missing. The sky seemed to hold its breath. She pressed her nose against the cool stone of the window frame, her brow furrowed. No gentle rain. Not even a single stray mote. She slipped out of bed, her bare feet silent on the smooth floor. The air in the cottage was usually infused with the soft, sweet scent of stardust and night-blooming jasmine, but tonight it seemed thinner, cooler. She found Lyra sitting by the hearth, not weaving as she usually did at this hour, but simply gazing into the gently glowing embers. "Grandmother," Elara whispered, her voice a fragile chime in the quiet room. Lyra turned, her eyes, the color of deep twilight, crinkling at the corners. "Couldn't sleep, little stargazer?" "The stars," Elara began, then hesitated. "They feel quiet tonight, and there's no stardust falling." Lyra sighed, a soft, weary sound that stirred something uneasy in Elara's heart. "You feel it too, then." She patted the space beside her on the woven rug, and Elara nestled in. "The stardust has been particular lately, not as generous as it once was." "Why?" Elara asked, her voice hushed. Lyra looked into the embers, her gaze distant. "The sky cartographers speak of shifts in the celestial currents. The dreamweavers say the collective dreaming of the world has grown troubled, disturbing the cosmic flow. The star tenders simply say the sky needs time to rest." She paused, then took Elara's small hand in hers. "But I think it might be something more." "Oh." Elara's heart gave a little thump. "What more?" "I've been noticing it for weeks," Lyra continued, her voice lower now. "The pots in the collecting hollows, they're not filling as quickly. The lumina flowers in the garden, their glow is a little fainter. Even the song moths who feed on pure stardust seem more sluggish. She squeezed Elara's hand. And my dreams, which used to be vibrant tapestries of light and sound, have become muted, like old photographs. Elara thought of her own dreams. Last night, she dreamt of a field of grey flowers, their petals drooping, rather than the usual swirling colors of the dream gardens. She hadn't thought much of it at the time, but now a chill snaked through her. "What can we do?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Lyra shook her head. "For now, we collect what we can. We conserve. We wait. The sky has its rhythms, little one. Perhaps it will return to us." But her eyes held a worry that her words tried to conceal. Elara spent the next few days with a new awareness. She noticed the subtle dimming of the pathways, the slight hesitation in the hum of the village's lightstones. The normally vibrant colors of the market stalls, where stardust-infused goods were traded, seemed a touch less brilliant. Even the Silversong River, which usually reflected the stars with liquid fire, now seemed to mirror them with a duller, more listless gleam. Driven by a growing sense of unease, Elara decided to take matters into her own hands. She couldn't just sit and wait. If the stardust was truly diminishing, it wasn't just a matter of dim lights. It was a matter of dreams, of wonder, of the very essence of lumina. One afternoon when Lyra was napping, Elara packed a small satchel. She tucked in a slice of moon bread, a flask of dew water, and a small empty jar, just in case she found any elusive stardust. She also brought her star finder, a smooth, polished stone that Lyra had given her, said to hum faintly when pointed towards a strong source of celestial energy. Her destination was the Whispering Glade, a place deep in the valley, where the oldest and tallest trees grew. It was said that the glade was where the stardust first touched the earth, pooling in ancient hollows before dispersing throughout the valley. If anywhere would still have an abundance of stardust, it would be there. The path to the Whispering Glade was familiar, yet today, it felt different. The luminous moss that usually lined the forest floor seemed to have lost some of its sparkle, its glow a sickly pale green rather than the usual vibrant emerald. The whisper wind, which usually carried the soft murmurs of the ancient trees, now seemed to sigh with a deeper melancholy. As she walked deeper, the trees grew taller, their branches intertwining above her to form a natural cathedral. Strange glowing fungi clung to their bark, casting fleeting shadows that danced like sprites. Elara clutched her starfinder, its surface cool and smooth against her palm. It remained silent. Finally, she reached the heart of the Whispering Glade. It was a clearing dominated by a colossal, ancient tree, its trunk wider than Elara's cottage. Its leaves, usually a cascade of shimmering silver, were now a dull muted gray-green. At its base, there was a series of shallow, crystalline pools, the Stardust Hollows. This was where Lyra and the other collectors would gather the purest stardust, which often settled here in thick, glowing layers. Elara's heart sank. The pools were almost empty. A thin, pathetic dusting of stardust barely coated their bottoms, a far cry from the usual deep, vibrant drifts. It was as if the sky had forgotten this sacred place. She knelt by the largest hollow, her fingers trembling as she touched the meager remnants. It felt cold, almost lifeless, lacking the usual soft hum. She closed her eyes, trying to feel the connection, to sense the flow of the cosmic currents. Nothing. Only an echoing emptiness. A profound sadness settled upon her. This was worse than she had imagined. Much worse. Worse. If the Whispering Glade, the very heart of Lumina's stardust supply, was so barren, then the whole village was in grave danger. She stood up, her gaze drawn upwards, past the muted leaves of the ancient tree, towards the sliver of sky visible through the canopy. The stars still shone, but they seemed distant, as if they had pulled back, unwilling to share their magic. Then something caught her eye. High up, nestled in a gnarled crook of the ancient tree's highest branches, was a faint, pulsating light. It wasn't the usual stardust glow. This light was different. It was a deep, iridescent blue, and it throbbed with a slow, steady rhythm, like a sleeping heart. Curiosity, stronger than her sadness, pulled Elara forward. The trunk of the ancient tree was covered in thick, winding vines, some of them still faintly luminous. She tested one, and it held her weight. With a determined breath, Elara began to climb. It was a slow, arduous ascent. The bark was rough against her hands, and the branches were slick with ancient dew. But the blue light above beckoned, a silent promise of something unknown. Higher and higher she went, past nests of dormant song moths, past clusters of withered star blooms. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she reached the crook in the branches. There, nestled amongst moss and ancient leaves, was a small, spherical object. It was perfectly smooth, the size of her fist, and it pulsed with that deep iridescent blue light. It wasn't stardust. It was something else entirely. She reached out a tentative finger, barely touching its surface. The sphere was warm, radiating a gentle heat that spread through her fingertips and up her arm. As she touched it, the blue light intensified, throbbing faster. And then, a sound. A faint ethereal music like the distant chime of tiny bells emanated from within. Elara gasped. The sound wasn't just beautiful, it felt familiar, like a half-forgotten memory. It was the song of the stars, the melody that usually accompanied the falling stardust, but amplified, focused. It was like holding the very heart of the sky in her hands. But as the light pulsed and the music chimed, Elara noticed something else. The sphere was not whole. A fine, almost invisible crack snaked across its surface, like a fragile vein. And from this crack, a tiny, almost imperceptible wisp of shimmering light was escaping, dissipating into the air like smoke. It was stardust. But not falling from the sky. It was leaking from this blue sphere. A sudden, startling realization hit Elara. This wasn't just a mysterious object. This was why the source, or at least, a significant part of it. This sphere was somehow connected to the flow of stardust, perhaps even its origin. And it was broken. She looked at the small, leaking crack, then at the vast, dimming sky, then back at the barren stardust hollows below. The connection was undeniable. The stardust wasn't just particular or resting. It was being held back, trapped, and slowly escaping through this tiny fissure. The blue sphere pulsed again, its light momentarily flaring brighter, as if in distress. The musical chime shifted, becoming more urgent, a plea rather than a song. Elara carefully cupped the sphere in her hands, its warmth comforting, its music resonating deep within her. It felt fragile, powerful, and utterly vital. This was why the stardust was fading. This was why the dreams were growing thin. The heart of their magic was breaking. But what was in it? And how could she fix it? She sat there in the ancient tree, the blue light illuminating her face, the faint, urgent music filling her ears. She knew, with a certainty that settled deep in her bones, that she couldn't just leave it here. She had stumbled upon a secret, a profound truth that affected not just Lumina, but perhaps the entire starry night. The answer wasn't in waiting for the sky to return to them. The answer was in understanding this sphere, and finding a way to mend its broken heart. She gently placed the sphere into her satchel, careful to cushion it with the moon bread. It still pulsed, a soft blue glow emanating faintly from the fabric, its music a silent hum against her side. As she began her careful descent, a new resolve settled over her. She might be just a child, but she was Elara, a stargazer from Lumina, and the fate of the stardust, and with it the dreams of her people now rested quite literally in her hands. The journey ahead was unknown, but the path was clear. She had to find a way to heal the source, to bring the magic back to the world. The journey ahead was unknown, but the path was clear. She had to find a way to heal the source, to bring the magic back to the world. Elara adjusted the bread pouch, feeling its comforting warmth against her side, and began her careful descent from the towering peak known to the Lumina people as the Whispering Crown. The path, barely a goat track etched into the sheer rock face, spiraled downwards, winding through ancient gnarled pines that clung precariously to the cliff edge. Below, the world stretched out, a vast tapestry of muted greens and grays, veiled in a thin, ethereal mist that seemed to cling to the valleys like forgotten thoughts. The vibrant hues she remembered from tales of old, of forests that shimmered with starlight and rivers that sang with liquid silver, were absent. Here, the silence was almost absolute, broken only by the whisper of the wind through the pines, and the occasional, almost mournful cry of a distant bird. As she descended, the air grew subtly thicker, losing the crisp lightness of the mountaintop outline. The first signs of the Stardust's decline became more apparent. Patches of moss on the rocks, usually a brilliant emerald, were faded, almost translucent. Tiny, delicate bellflowers, which should have chimed with faint, unseen energy, hung limp and silent. A shiver, not of cold but of profound sadness, traced its way down Ilara's spine. This was it. This was the world without the Stardust's vibrant touch. The blue bread in her pouch pulsed with a steady rhythm, a gentle thrumming that seemed to encourage her forward. Its light, though faint, cut a small ethereal circle in the deepening twilight that had begun to settle over the lower slopes. She followed the path until it finally leveled out, spilling her onto the threshold of what the old stories called the Whispering Woods. Here, the trees were even more ancient, their trunks wider than her small arms could embrace, their branches woven into a dense canopy that blotted out the last vestiges of the fading sky. The mist thickened, swirling between the colossal roots that snaked across the forest floor like slumbering serpents. The air was cool and smelled of damp earth, decaying leaves, and something else, a faint, almost imperceptible scent of forgotten magic, like the ghost of a perfume. Ilara took a deep breath, clutching the bread pouch tighter. The woods felt enormous, watchful. She stepped beneath the canopy, and the world changed. Sounds became muffled, swallowed by the sheer density of the trees. The light, already dim, took on a greenish underwater quality, filtered through countless layers of leaves. Tiny, pinprick lights, like distant fireflies, flickered in the deeper shadows, but they were too shy, too weak to offer any real illumination. The bread, however, seemed to know the way. Its soft blue glow intensified just enough to cast a small pool of light around her feet, and its silent hum resonated more strongly, a gentle tug in the direction she needed to go. It didn't speak in words, but in sensations. A pull towards an ancient oak, a subtle warmth guiding her around a tangle of thorny bushes, a quickening pulse when she strayed from the unseen path. She walked for what felt like hours, deeper and deeper into the forest's embrace. Her small legs ached, but the quiet determination of a stargazer, taught to endure long nights of watching the heavens, kept her moving. She observed everything, as her teachers had taught her, the delicate patterns of moss, the way the light played on a dew-kissed spiderweb, the strange, almost musical rustle of leaves that sounded like sighs. It was this rustle, though, that eventually drew her attention. It wasn't the wind. It was a rhythmic, almost deliberate whisper, coming from a cluster of ancient moss-covered stones ahead. The bread pulsed more rapidly, urging her closer. As she approached, the pinprick lights she had seen earlier seemed to gather around the stones, coalescing into tiny shimmering motes of light, no bigger than her thumb. They danced, not randomly, but with a gentle undulating motion, almost as if they were trying to communicate. These were glimmer wisps, creatures of pure, nascent magic, rarely seen outside the most enchanted places. They were drawn to the bread, their faint glow momentarily brightening in its presence. The glimmer wisps led her to the center of the stone circle. Here, nestled amongst the roots of an ancient, gnarled willow, was a small spring. Or rather, what shouldn't have been a spring. It was little more than a muddy hollow, with a single slow drip of water falling from a mossy overhang. The glimmer wisps, usually playful and bright, hovered over it with a subdued, almost sorrowful light. Ilara knelt, peering into the murky puddle. This was the spring of silent songs, a place famed in Lumina lore for its water, said to hum with the very first melodies of creation. Now, it was utterly mute. The silence here felt heavier, more profound than anywhere else. The bread in her pouch vibrated intensely, its blue light flaring slightly, as if in distress. She carefully dipped a finger into the cold, still water. There was no music, no energy, just the chill of the earth. But as her finger touched the surface, a faint, almost imperceptible tremor ran through the water. It wasn't a ripple, but a sympathetic vibration, an echo of the bread's hum. Then, she understood. The stardust wasn't just fading, its music was dying. The stardust was the cosmic symphony, the underlying harmony that gave life and magic to everything. Without its song, the world slowly fell silent, its magic unraveling like a forgotten melody. The spring of silent songs was a mirror, reflecting the world's deep-seated ailment. As this realization settled upon her, the glimmer wisps around her began to swirl faster, their tiny lights blinking with renewed urgency. They formed a shimmering arrow, pointing not deeper into the woods, but upwards, towards the gnarled branches of the willow tree. Elara looked up, her gaze tracing the path the wisps indicated. High in the ancient boughs, almost invisible against the twilight leaves, something stirred. It was larger than a wisp, and its light was softer, more sustained, like a captured fragment of moonlight. Slowly, gracefully, it drifted down, its wings, translucent and edged with silver, beating with an almost imperceptible rhythm. It was a moon moth, a creature of pure moonlight and starlight, rarely seen, even by stargazers. Its body was slender and iridescent, its antennae long and delicate, sensing the subtle currents of magic in the air. It landed gently on the mossy ground before her, its large, luminous eyes, deep pools of liquid silver, fixed upon her. The moon moth didn't speak with a voice, not in the way humans did. Instead, Elara felt its presence in her mind, a gentle touch, a cascade of images and feelings. Silence. It grows. The weave unravels. The images came to her like soft dreams, a vast intricate tapestry woven from threads of pure starlight, stretching across the cosmos. This was the harmonic weave, the moon moth showed her. The very fabric of existence held together by the music of the stardust. Now, threads were fraying, colors dimming, silence spreading. The spring of silent songs was merely one small silent knot in a vast unraveling pattern. "You carry a fragment of the source's song," the moon moth communicated, its luminous gaze resting on the bread pouch. A memory of harmony. It calls to the broken threads. Elara understood. The bread wasn't just a guide, it was a resonance, a tuning fork for the cosmic music. It could awaken the faint echoes of the Stardust's song. Where must I go? How can I mend the weave? She projected, her thoughts clear and urgent. The moon moth spread its shimmering wings, a breathtaking display of celestial light. The sunken gardens of Melodia. There, the songflowers sleep. There, the echo chimes are silent. There, the harmonic weave may yet be retuned. Another wave of images washed over Elara, a place of ethereal beauty, overgrown and forgotten, where crystal flowers once sang and bells of starlight chimed in the gentle breeze. Now it was a place of shadows and silence, choked by melancholy vines. "The path is perilous," the moon moth warned, its light flickering with concern. "Across the river of whispers, through the fields of fading dreams. The unraveling has birthed shadows that feed on the absence of light, on the quiet of the world." Elara looked at the moon moth, then down at the pulsing bread. Her fear was still there, a small knot in her stomach, but it was overshadowed by a fierce resolve. She was Elara, a stargazer. She would not let the music of the world die. "Kai will go," she affirmed, her voice a soft, steady whisper in the vast, silent woods. The moon moth dipped its head, a silent acknowledgement. Then with a gentle flutter it ascended, its luminous form hovering just above her head, a beacon of ethereal light in the deepening gloom. "I follow the light, child of Lumina. Follow the song." Wanshanan. With the moon moth as her silent guide, Elara left the spring of silent songs, the bread still humming its quiet melody. They plunged deeper into the whispering woods, the ancient trees seeming to part for them, making way for the light of the moon moth and the faint pulse of the bread. The forest grew denser, its ancient silence broken only by the soft rustle of Elara's cloak and the nearly imperceptible beat of the moon moth's wings. The air grew colder and a thin spectral mist began to coil around the tree trunks, giving the woods an otherworldly, dreamlike quality. The glimmer wisps, emboldened by the bread's presence, now flitted around them, like tiny, curious attendants, their delicate lights briefly illuminating forgotten paths and hidden nooks. Soon, The ground beneath their feet grew softer, wetter. The sound of rushing water, muted by the mist, began to reach Ilara's ears. They were approaching the river of whispers. The moon moth paused at the edge of a wide, dark river, its surface like polished obsidian, reflecting the faint glow of Ilara's bread and the moon moth's own luminescence. No ordinary river this. It moved with an unnatural slowness, its current barely perceptible, yet from its dark depths rose faint, indistinct murmurs, like countless voices speaking just beyond the reach of understanding. These were the whispers of forgotten tales, of dreams unfulfilled, of words unspoken, all carried on the current of fading magic. The river of whispers, the moon moth communicated, its presence a gentle warning. Kitty tests the heart. Miss me maunanio, unsentria, antendi tests the heart. Those who listen too closely become lost in its echoes. Ina. Ilara shivered, listening to the sorrowful murmurings. It felt as if every regret and sadness of the world was flowing past her. But the bread pulsed steadily, a warm, bright counterpoint to the river's melancholic song. It reminded her of the hope she carried, the potential for renewed harmony. How do we cross? She asked, her voice hushed. The moon moth hovered over a series of ancient, moss-covered stepping stones that vanished into the mist-shrouded river. They were barely visible, worn smooth by centuries of forgotten footsteps. One step at a time, child. Let the song guide you. Niransimti. Ilara took a deep breath. She looked at the first stone, barely larger than her foot, slick with river mist. She knew she couldn't simply leap. She would have to trust the bread, and her stargazer's sense of balance and intuition. Carefully, she placed her foot on the first stone. It felt cold, ancient, but solid. As her weight settled, the bread pulsed, and a faint, almost imperceptible blue light spread from her foot to the stone. For a moment she thought she heard a faint, encouraging hum rise from the stone itself, a ghost of its former magical resonance. She moved to the second stone, then the third. Each time the bread's gentle pulse seemed to connect her to the stone, making it feel less like a precarious perch and more like an extension of the path. The whispers of the river tried to twine around her, tugging at her memories, tempting her to linger, to listen to their sorrowful stories. She thought of her mother, of the warm, comforting light of Lumina. She thought of the promise she had made. Focus on the light, the moon moth urged, its presence a comforting anchor in her mind. Focus on the harmony to come. One. Ilara closed her eyes for a moment, letting the bread's silent music fill her senses, pushing away the river's mournful murmurs. When she opened them, the stepping stone seemed to glow faintly with a shared blue luminescence, guiding her across the dark water. She moved with renewed confidence, her small boots finding purchase on each stone, until finally, with a soft splash, she reached the far bank. The moon moth landed beside her, its light a warm comfort. The air on this side of the river felt different, lighter, yet tinged with a delicate melancholy. The ancient trees of the whispering woods gave way to a vast open expanse, shrouded in the same ethereal mist, the fields of fading dreams. This place was unlike anything Ilara had ever imagined. It was a landscape of soft, undulating hills, covered not in grass, but in shimmering, iridescent flora that looked like solidified dreams. Flowers that resembled giant, crystalline teardrops, leaves that shifted colors like distant nebulae, and tall, slender reeds that swayed without wind, humming with almost inaudible, wistful melodies. But they were fading. The colors were muted, the shimmer dull. Many of the dream flowers were brittle, crumbling to dust at a touch. The melodies from the reeds were barely whispers, on the verge of silence. This is where dreams come to rest, and sometimes to fade, the moon moth communicated, its light dimming slightly in sympathy. Without the Stardust's song, they struggled to hold their form. As they walked deeper into the fields, Ilara noticed something else. Small shadowy figures, like tendrils of smoke, began to coalesce in the deeper hollows between the dream flowers. They were shapeless, formless, flickering at the edges of her vision. They didn't seem to have eyes or mouths, but Ilara felt their presence, a cold, hungry emptiness that sought to absorb the last vestiges of light and warmth. Shadow weavers, The moon moth identified them, its light flaring brighter, pushing back the encroaching gloom. They are not evil, child, but born of the absence. They feed on silence, on fading light, on forgotten dreams. One now. Elara gripped the bread pouch tighter. The bread's pulse grew stronger, its blue light a small defiant beacon against the encroaching shadows. The shadow weavers recoiled from its pure resonant energy, shrinking back into the misty hollows, hissing softly like dying embers. She realized then the true power of the bread. It wasn't just a guide or a memory. It was a small living piece of the source's harmony, capable of pushing back the desolation that was creeping over the world. They moved carefully, the moon moth leading the way, its light and the bread's glow forming a protective bubble against the hungry shadow weavers. Elara kept her gaze focused forward, her heart filled with a renewed sense of purpose. Every step she took, every shadow she pushed back, felt like a small victory. After what felt like an eternity of walking through the mournful beauty of the fields of fading dreams, the landscape began to change again. The dream flowers thinned, replaced by taller, darker trees, their branches laden with ancient heavy moss. The mist grew thicker, swirling and dancing around them, until it felt as if they were walking inside a cloud. Then, through a sudden parting in the mist, Elara saw it. Before them lay a sight of breathtaking, yet heartbreaking, beauty. It was an enormous circular clearing, sunk slightly below the surrounding terrain, like a forgotten amphitheater. This was the sunken gardens of Melodia. Once, it must have been a riot of sound and light. Now, it was a cathedral of silence. Colossal crystalline flowers, taller than Elara, stood frozen, their petals like shattered stained glass, no longer vibrating with song. Delicate filigreed echo chimes made of what looked like solidified starlight hung from ancient moss-draped trellises, their bells cracked and utterly mute. The ground was carpeted with a thick velvety moss, and everywhere, melancholy vines with strangely luminous, drooping leaves had begun to twine around the silent instruments, slowly strangling them. The air here was heavy, saturated with a profound quiet that pressed down on Elara. It was the deepest silence she had yet encountered, a silence that hummed with the weight of forgotten melodies. The bread in her pouch pulsed with an almost frantic energy, its blue glow intensifying, radiating a warm, insistent thrum that seemed to challenge the stillness. "This is it," the moon moth communicated, its light flickering with both awe and sorrow. "Why the heart of the harmonic wheeze unraveling?" Here, the first notes fell silent. "Why can't he?" Elara stepped into the gardens, her small boots sinking slightly into the soft moss. She felt an overwhelming sense of sadness, a profound empathy for this once singing place. She reached out and touched one of the crystalline petals of a silent songflower. It was cold, smooth, and utterly still. The bread pulsed in her hand, guiding her. It wasn't just showing her the way, it was guiding her to listen. To listen to the silence, to feel the absence. She followed the bread's pull to the center of the gardens, where a magnificent multi-tiered structure, resembling an enormous silent fountain, stood. It was made of polished obsidian and shimmering quartz, and from its many levels hung countless echo chimes, all tangled in the melancholy vines, all utterly silent. This was the Grand Harmony Cascade, the centerpiece of Melodia, where all the garden's songs once converged. "The songflowers must be retuned," the moon moth explained, circling the silent fountain. The echo chimes awakened. But they need more than a touch. They need a stargazer's heart, attuned to the cosmic symphony. They need a fragment of true, stardust song. Elara looked at the bread. It was her fragment. But how? She was just a child. She knew the stargazer chants, the ancient melodies her people used to align themselves with the stars, but she had never truly sung them with purpose, with magic. Then a memory flashed through her mind, a lesson from her grandmother. "The song is not just in your voice, child. It is in your heart, in your intent, in the starlight that flows through your veins." She closed her eyes, holding the bread in both hands. Its warmth spread through her, a gentle, vibrant energy. She focused on its silent hum, letting it fill her. She thought of Lumina, of the shimmering nebulae, of the distant, vibrant stars. She thought of the moon moth's message of the harmonic weave, of the world's music. Then, softly, tentatively, she began to sing. Her voice, small and clear, rose in the profound silence of the sunken gardens. It was a simple, ancient stargazer chant, a melody of alignment and resonance, one she had heard countless times but never truly understood until now. She sang of the genesis of light, of the dance of celestial bodies, of the cosmic harmony that bound all things. As she sang, holding the bread, something miraculous began to happen. The bread's blue light intensified, spreading outwards like ripples in a pond. It touched the nearest crystalline songflower, and a faint, almost imperceptible hum rose from its petals. Then, another, and another. The silent flowers began to vibrate, their delicate structures responding to the resonance of Elara's song and the bread's power. Faint, ethereal notes, like sighs of awakening, began to drift through the gardens. They were fragile, hesitant, but they were dithyrae. The melancholy vines, touched by the rising harmony, seemed to recoil, their luminous leaves curling inwards, retreating from the reawakening magic. Elara continued to sing, her voice growing stronger, more confident, weaving her stargazer melody with the bread's silent hum. The echo chimes on the grand harmony cascade began to stir. First, a tiny, almost imperceptible tinkle from one of the smallest bells. Then another. Slowly, gradually, the cascade began to awaken, each chime adding its own unique starlight-spun note to the burgeoning chorus. The shadow weavers, which had begun to creep from the edges of the gardens, drawn by the profound silence, now recoiled with a shuddering hiss. The light of Elara's song, empowered by the bread, was too strong, too pure for them. They dissolved back into the mist, their hunger momentarily defeated. The sunken gardens of Melodia were not yet fully restored, but they were no longer silent. A delicate, ethereal symphony now filled the air, the hesitant, beautiful music of reawakening. The crystalline songflowers glowed with a soft inner light, and the echo chimes chimed with a gentle, resonant harmony. The melancholy vines had withered back, revealing more of the ancient, intricate beauty of the gardens. Elara finished her song, her voice fading into the newfound music of the gardens. She stood, breathless, her heart pounding with exhilaration and exhaustion. The bread in her hands pulsed with a vibrant, joyful light, its blue glow stronger than ever. The moon moth landed on her shoulder, its presence a warm comfort. "You have done well, child of Lumina. A thread of the weave has been mended." The song begins anew. In Tao, Town. Elara looked around at the reawakened gardens, a small smile touching her lips. The world felt lighter, more hopeful. But she knew this was just the beginning. The harmonic weave was vast, and the sunken gardens of Melodia were but one knot in its intricate design. Where next? She asked the moon moth, her voice still a little shaky, but filled with renewed resolve. The moon moth gently nuzzled her cheek, with an antenna. "To the Starforge of Ethel. There the heart of the Stardust lies. But its path is guarded by ancient riddles, woven from starlight and shadow, designed to test not only the mind, but the very soul." One. Elara looked towards the horizon, where the mist still lay thick and mysterious. The journey was far from over, but with the bread's glowing heart in her hands, and the moon moth's silent guidance, she was ready for whatever the path ahead might hold. The music had begun to return, and she would follow its faint, beckoning melody, no matter where it led. The music had begun to return, and she would follow its faint, beckoning melody, no matter where it led. As Elara stepped forward, the stubborn mist that had clung to the air began to thin, not dissipating all at once, but rather drawing back like a shy curtain, revealing glimpses of the world beyond. The air, once heavy and still, now carried a fresh, earthy scent, like leaves after a gentle rain. The moon moth, hitherto a steady, pale beacon, now fluttered with a renewed vibrancy, its wings catching what little ambient light there was, and scattering it into tiny, iridescent dust motes. The faint melody grew stronger, weaving itself into the very fabric of the landscape. It wasn't a song sung by a voice, nor played by an instrument, but a harmonious hum that resonated from the ground beneath her feet, the ancient trees that began to emerge from the receding veil, and even the subtle stir of the air itself. It was the music of the world, gentle and profound, and Elara felt it deep within her own heart, a comforting echo to the bread's soft glow. They found themselves entering a forest unlike any she had ever imagined. This was not the dark, tangled wood of cautionary tales, but a place of quiet majesty, where trees soared to impossible heights, their boughs heavy with leaves that shimmered with an inner light, as if spun from woven moonlight. Moss, thick and luminous, carpeted the forest floor, tracing intricate patterns around ancient roots and fallen logs. Flowers, unfurling in shades of lavender and silver, pulsed with a soft bioluminescent glow, illuminating the path like scattered jewels. Elara walked in wonder, her steps light upon the moss. The glowing heart of bread in her hands cast a warm golden circle around her, a small portable sun in this ethereal twilight. She felt no fear here, only a profound sense of peace and curiosity. Small, shy creatures, squirrels with tails like plumes of starlight, and deer with antlers woven from delicate crystal, peered at her from behind shimmering ferns, their eyes wide and unblinking before melting back into the luminous undergrowth. They seemed to be listening to the same music that guided Elara, their movements synchronized with its gentle pulse. The melody swelled, guiding her deeper into the whispering woods. Here the very trees seemed to murmur secrets, their leaves rustling not with wind, but with soft, barely audible whispers that blended with the overarching harmony. The moon moth drifted ahead, its light a reliable guide through the shifting patterns of light and shadow. Elara noticed that the bread's glow seemed to intensify whenever the melody reached a particular crescendo, almost as if it were resonating in sympathy, a living, breathing part of the world's song. After what felt like hours, though time seemed to lose its meaning in this enchanted place, the trees began to thin. The path widened, opening into a vast circular clearing bathed in an otherworldly twilight. In its center stood a colossal cairn, a stack of smooth river-worn stones piled high, each one humming with a faint, silvery luminescence. Ancient glyphs, too intricate to decipher fully, spiraled up its sides, glowing faintly like captured starlight. The music here was no longer a gentle hum, but a resonant chord, deep and pure, vibrating through the very ground. As Elara approached, the moon moth paused, settling gently on the topmost stone of the cairn. Its wings pulsed with a slow, deliberate rhythm, mirroring the beat of Elara's own heart. A voice clear as a mountain spring and as old as the stones themselves, echoed not from the cairn, but from the air around it, seeming to rise from the very earth and descend from the starry sky. "Welcome, child of the waking dream, seeker of the silver stream." The voice resonated, gentle yet profound. "The path to the heart of the world is not forged by strength, but by truth. Before you lies the cairn of echoes and its first guardian riddle. Listen well, for its words are woven from starlight and shadow, designed to test not only the mind but the very soul." Elara clutched the glowing bread, its warmth a comfort against the sudden chill of anticipation. She took a deep breath, focusing on the steady hum of the music that still permeated the clearing. The voice continued, speaking the riddle. "I have no voice, yet I sing the world's oldest song. Carnivans, I have no body, yet I hold all that is strong. I am born of silence, yet I speak of all things known. I am given freely, yet by many I am disowned. What am I? Pande." Elara closed her eyes, letting the words wash over her. She felt the riddle not just in her ears but in her bones, in the deep-seated wisdom her grandmother had always spoken of. The moon moth on the cairn seemed to glow brighter, a silent encouragement. The music of the clearing pulsed around her, a gentle suggestion, a soft whisper of understanding. She thought of the mist she had walked through, the unknown path, the faint melody that had called to her. She thought of her grandmother's stories, of the hidden truths in plain sight, of the courage it took to follow one's own sense of right. The glowing bread in her hands seemed to warm further, almost vibrating with a quiet insistence. "I have no voice, yet I sing the world's oldest song." The music, she realized. But not just the music. "I have no body, yet I hold all that is strong." What truly holds strength without a physical form? "I am born of silence, yet I speak of all things known." A paradox. I am given freely, yet by many, I am disowned. This was the key, she felt. Something fundamental, powerful, yet often ignored. Her mind drifted to the feeling of certainty she'd felt when she decided to follow the music, when she accepted the bread and the moth. It wasn't a thought, not a logical deduction, but a deep, unshakable knowing. She opened her eyes, looking at the glowing glyphs on the cairn, at the shimmering leaves of the forest, at the silent, patient moon moth. It's truth, she whispered, testing the word. Inner truth, the truth of one's own heart. The voice resonated again, a ripple of sound through the air. Explain, child. Elara gathered her thoughts, her voice steadying. Inner truth has no voice, but it guides us, like the music guides me. It's the oldest song because it's always been there, in every living thing. It has no body, but it's the strongest thing, because it can't be broken, only forgotten. It's born of silence, because it's found when you listen deep inside yourself, away from the noise of the world. And it speaks of all things known because it connects us to everything. It's given freely because it can endure it. A soft, sighing sound, like a gentle breeze through ancient leaves, swept through the clearing. The glyphs on the cairn flared, a brilliant silver, before fading back to a soft glow. The ground beneath Elara's feet thrummed, and a section of the cairn, previously solid, now shimmered and dissolved, revealing a narrow, winding passage that led into the darkness beyond. You have found the first key, Elara, the voice said, softer now with a hint of warmth. May your inner truth light your way. The moon moth fluttered from the cairn and settled once more on Elara's shoulder, its light, a comforting pulse against her cheek. With a renewed sense of purpose, she stepped into the newly revealed passage, the glowing bread held before her, its light chasing away the shadows. The passage sloped gently downwards, the air growing cooler, carrying the scent of damp earth and distant stone. Soon the rough-hewn walls gave way to a smoother, almost polished surface, shimmering faintly with an inner luminescence. They had entered a realm beneath the earth, a place of breathtaking beauty, the shimmering caves of Lumina. The caves were a kaleidoscope of light and shadow, sculpted by water and magic over eons. Stalactites hung like crystal chandeliers, dripping with tiny, glowing dewdrops that caught and refracted the light from the bread and the moon moth, painting the cave walls with dancing rainbows. Below, stalagmites rose like inverted spires, some forming elaborate altars, others resembling silent guardians. Every surface, from the floor to the vaulted ceiling, glittered with embedded crystals, quartz, amethyst, and unknown minerals that pulsed with gentle internal light. The music followed them here too, though it was different now. It was a deeper, more resonant hum, echoing off the crystalline surfaces, a symphony of gentle drips and chimes, of water flowing unseen through subterranean channels. The moon moth, usually silent, now emitted a soft, almost imperceptible hum that harmonized perfectly with the cave's natural music, its light seeming to grow stronger, perhaps drawing energy from the surrounding crystals. Elara walked slowly, her eyes wide with wonder. The glowing bread wasn't just a source of light, it seemed to resonate with the crystals, making them shimmer with greater intensity as she passed. She felt a connection to this place, a sense of ancient energy vibrating through the stone. They came upon an underground river, its waters so clear they seemed to be made of liquid light, flowing over a bed of polished, glowing pebbles. The river itself hummed with the cave's melody, carrying a faint, sweet scent. Tiny, translucent fish, their scales like living pearls, swam in lazy circles, their movements slow and graceful. On the banks, delicate phosphorescent fungi bloomed, casting soft pools of light that attracted darting, luminous insects. Elara knelt by the river, cupping her hands and taking a sip. The water was cool and sweet, leaving a lingering taste of starlight on her tongue. It felt invigorating, filling her with a gentle energy that quieted any lingering weariness. The bread seemed to pulse in her hands as if approving of her communion with the cave's essence. They continued their journey through the caves, sometimes walking along shimmering paths, sometimes crossing over bridges of naturally formed crystal that spanned deep chasms, revealing glimpses of glowing subterranean worlds far below. The moon moth always knew the way, its gentle light unwavering, guiding her through the labyrinthine passages. There were no more riddles here, just the pure, unadulterated magic of the earth, revealing itself in breathtaking beauty. After what felt like an age spent in the heart of the earth, the passage began to ascend. The air grew warmer, fresher, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth. Soon a faint light appeared ahead, growing steadily brighter until they emerged from a hidden crevice in a sheer rock face, blinking in the soft, diffused light of a perpetual twilight. They stood at the base of a towering mountain range, its peaks obscured by swirling clouds that seemed to catch and hold the last vestiges of the sun's glow. Before them stretched a landscape of rugged beauty, dominated by a series of cascading waterfalls. These were no ordinary falls. They were the Whispering Falls, a vast, complex network of silver streams plummeting from dizzying heights into a shimmering lake below. The sound here was immense, a roaring symphony of falling water, yet woven within it was the familiar, beckoning melody, amplified and transformed into a powerful orchestral chorus. Each cascade seemed to sing a different note, creating a complex, ever-shifting harmony that resonated through the entire valley. Rainbows, born from the constant spray, arched across the chasms, shimmering like bridges of pure light. The moon moth, usually so calm, now fluttered excitedly on Elara's shoulder, its light pulsing in rhythm with the fall's booming music. The glowing bread in her hands warmed considerably, almost radiating heat, its light cutting through the spray-laden air. "This must be it," Elara murmured, remembering the riddles that guarded the silver stream. The grandeur of the place was both awe-inspiring and a little intimidating. How could she possibly cross such a barrier? The waterfall seemed to stretch for miles, an impassable wall of sound and water. As she pondered, a figure began to coalesce from the mist and spray at the edge of the largest waterfall. It was tall and slender, composed entirely of shimmering water, yet solid enough to radiate a gentle, watchful presence. Its eyes, deep pools of sapphire, focused on Elara with an ancient wisdom. It was the spirit of the falls, a water elemental, its form shifting and reforming with a ceaseless flow. The elemental's voice was like the soft murmur of 1,000 streams, yet clear and distinct above the roar. "Greetings, Seeker. You have passed the cairn of echoes and your heart shines true. But the Whispering Falls are a test not of knowledge, but of resonance. To pass you must understand the song of the water, and find your own note within its harmony." Elara looked at the impassable wall of water. "How?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper against the thunder of the falls. "How do I find my note?" The elemental gestured with a flowing arm towards the falls. "Each cascade, each drop, each current sings its own truth. They speak of flow, of surrender, of persistence, of change. They speak of the journey, not the destination. To cross, you must not fight the water, nor command it. You must become part of its song. Listen, Elara. Not with your ears alone, but with your heart. What does The challenge was different this time. It wasn't a question with a logical answer, but a test of empathy and intuition. Elara closed her eyes, letting the immense sound of the falls wash over her. She felt the vibrations in the ground, in her chest, in her very bones. The glowing bread pulsed rhythmically in her hands, a steady beat in the roaring symphony. The moon moth softly hummed its own gentle tune on her shoulder, a counterpoint to the elemental's challenge. She focused on the music, the persistent, guiding melody that had led her this far. It was here too, woven into the roar and spray. She began to discern individual notes, individual currents of sound within the greater torrent. There was the deep bass of the largest cascade, the shimmering treble of the smaller, higher streams, the airy whisper of the mist itself. Her grandmother's words echoed in her mind. "If everything has a song, Elara, you just need to learn how to listen." What did the water say? It spoke of ceaseless movement, of giving way, of finding the path of least resistance, yet with an unwavering purpose. It spoke of clarity, of washing away the old, of nourishing the new. And what did her heart echo in return? It echoed a longing for clarity, for persistence, for the journey itself. It echoed a willingness to surrender to the path, to trust the flow. She thought of the challenges she'd faced, the fear she'd overcome, the truth she'd found within herself. She took a deep breath, and then, without thinking, she began to hum. It was a soft, wordless sound at first, a gentle rising note that seemed to come from deep within her chest. It was her own personal melody, not loud, not powerful, but pure and clear, a single, unwavering thread in the mighty tapestry of the fall's music. As she hummed, The moon moth on her shoulder began to glow with an ethereal intensity, its hum joining hers, a soft, high harmony. The glowing bread in her hands pulsed with a radiant light, and a warmth spread from her hands, through her arms, and into her entire being. And then, a wondrous thing happened. As Ilara's hum grew steadier, more confident, a path began to reveal itself within the heart of the largest waterfall. The water didn't stop flowing, but it seemed to part, creating a shimmering, arching tunnel, a crystalline passage through the roaring torrent. The water curved around it, creating a protective sheath of liquid light, leaving the air within the tunnel clear and dry. The water elemental nodded, its sapphire eyes gleaming. "You have found your note, Ilara, and in finding it, you have found the path." Ilara, still humming her soft, true melody, stepped forward. The moon moth fluttered beside her, its light illuminating the crystalline tunnel. The roaring symphony of the falls was muffled here, transformed into a gentle, resonant hum that vibrated through the water walls, a powerful, yet comforting, embrace. She walked through the very heart of the whispering falls, protected by her own song and the magic of her journey. When she emerged on the other side, the air was still thick with spray, but the roar of the falls was behind her, fading into a gentle background hum. Before her, the landscape stretched out, wild and beautiful. And then she saw it. Far in the distance, nestled amidst peaks that shimmered with perpetual snow, a faint, almost imperceptible silver thread, winding its way down from the highest mountain. It gleamed with an inner light, a promise of the ultimate destination. The silver stream. It was still far, a journey that would demand more courage, more truth, more magic. But Ilara knew she was closer than ever before. The music, now a clear, beckoning melody, pulled her onward, a golden thread leading her towards that distant, shimmering light. The bread in her hands glowed steadily, and the moon moth danced ahead, ready for the next step of their incredible adventure. The bread in her hands glowed steadily, and the moon moth danced ahead, ready for the next step of their incredible adventure. Mount Selim, as the ancients called it, rose before them, a majestic sentinel piercing the very clouds. Its slopes were etched with the whispers of forgotten winds, and the deep shadows of time. The path, initially a winding track through gnarled cloud-kissed pines, soon dwindled to a series of treacherous ledges and icy crags. The air grew thinner, sharper, biting at Ilara's cheeks. Yet, the glowing bread in her hands seemed to radiate an inner warmth. A comforting pulse against the chill, a small sun held against the cold. The moon moth, its wings shimmering like captured moonlight, zipped ahead, its ethereal glow revealing handholds and footholds that Ilara's weary eyes might have missed. Sometimes it would touch a seemingly solid rock face, and a faint shimmering path would appear, a temporary bridge of starlight across a chasm. These were the mountain's secrets, revealed only to those guided by pure intent. As they ascended, the melody grew richer, more complex. It wasn't just a single note anymore, but a symphony of chimes and flutes, a promise of revelation. But with the music came tests. The wind began to whisper not just through the crags but directly into Ilara's mind, murmuring doubts. "You are too small, too weak. This journey is not for you. Turn back, child." Ilara clutched the bread tighter, its warmth a reminder of her mother's love. She remembered her mother's stories, her quiet strength. She remembered the fear she'd overcome in the whispering woods, the choice she'd made in the Valley of Echoes. "I am strong," she whispered back to the wind, her voice trembling but firm. "I carry the truth in my heart. This journey wisp for me." And with each affirmation, the wind's whispers softened, its icy grip loosening, as if acknowledging her resolve. Higher still, they reached a plateau shrouded in perpetual mist. The moon moth paused, its glow intensifying, and then led Ilara into what appeared to be a vast cavernous opening in the rock face. Inside, the mist became thick, swirling, and from its depths, figures began to emerge. Not solid beings, but shimmering phantoms, reflections of her own fears and regrets, shimmering like distorted mirrors. Her deepest fear, being alone, lost, forgotten. A ghostly image of herself, small and tearful, appeared before her, reaching out with desperate, shadow-thin hands. Another showed her failing, dropping the bread, the magic fading, leaving her empty-handed and cold. This was the mountain's test of truth. Could she face her inner shadows, her deepest anxieties, and still hold true to her purpose? Elara took a deep breath. She looked at the phantom of herself, not with fear, but with understanding, with a quiet compassion for that part of her. "You are a part of me," she said softly, her voice echoing in the misty chamber, "but you do not define me. I am not lost, for I have a path. I am not alone, for I carry love, and I have a friend by my side." She gently stroked the moon moth perched on her shoulder. She held out the glowing bread. Its light, pure and steady, pierced through the mist, illuminating the phantoms. They didn't vanish. Instead, they changed. The tearful child smiled faintly. The failing figure stood tall, resolute. Her fears transformed, not into absence, but into affirmations of growth and resilience, understood and accepted. The mist began to thin, revealing a clear path upwards, shimmering with newly revealed crystalline veins. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they broke through the last veil of clouds. Before them lay the summit, not a jagged peak, but a wide crystalline basin, smooth as polished glass. And in its very center, shimmering under the pale distant stars, was a pool of liquid moonlight. This was the silver stream, not a flowing river, but a still perfect mirror, reflecting the cosmos above and the pure intent below. The air here hummed with pure magic, vibrating with the melody that had guided her, now a magnificent silent chord that resonated deep within her chest. The moon moth danced joyous circles above the stream, its light merging with the stream's ethereal glow, a dance of pure joy. Elara approached the edge of the basin. The water was impossibly clear, reflecting not only the stars but also Elara's own reflection, brighter, clearer, imbued with a gentle inner light. The glowing bread in her hands pulsed, its warmth now resonating with the stream's profound magic, a heart beating in harmony. She understood now. The silver stream wasn't a place to find a magic, but a place where magic revealed itself. It was the heart of the world's truth, the wellspring of pure intention and courage. As Elara knelt, a voice, gentle and clear as the stream itself, whispered in her mind. It wasn't a voice from a person, but the voice of the stream, of the mountain, of the ancient magic itself. "You have brought truth, courage, and love. You have carried the light within you, Elara. But how do I bring it back?" Elara whispered, looking at the glowing bread, which seemed to yearn towards the stream, vibrating with a silent energy. "The magic you seek is not something to take," the stream's voice responded, flowing through her thoughts like cool water. "It is something to share. You have nurtured it, guarded it, understood it. Now, let it flow, and it will return to the world in 1,000 new ways." Elara carefully held the glowing bread over the silver stream. Its light intensified, pulsing with a deep, resonant hum. She felt a connection, a profound understanding. This bread, baked with her mother's love, infused with her own journey, and touched by the magic of the world, was a vessel of pure intention, a seed of light. She gently lowered the bread until it touched the surface of the silver stream. The moment the bread met the water, a ripple of pure silver light spread across the basin. It wasn't a splash, but a gentle, shimmering expansion that flowed outward, filling the entire basin with a soft, iridescent glow. The bread didn't dissolve. Instead, it seemed to melt into the stream, its golden light blending seamlessly with the silver, creating a breathtaking swirl of iridescent magic that danced and breathed like a living nebula. As the last piece of bread merged, a brilliant pillar of light, a silent, magnificent beacon, erupted from the center of the silver stream, reaching towards the distant stars. And as the light streamed upwards, Elara felt it too, a warmth spreading through her chest, a sense of belonging and profound peace. The music swelled to a glorious crescendo, a chorus of triumphant chimes and soaring flutes, then softened into a harmonious lullaby that cradled the mountain. The moon moth, bathed in the new light, glowed with an even greater brilliance, its wings now shimmering with all the colors of the rainbow. A tiny, living aurora. It landed gently on Elara's shoulder, a silent promise of continued companionship, its antennae gently tickling her cheek. The silver stream had been renewed, not by taking, but by giving. Elara understood that the greatest magic wasn't about power, but about connection, about truth, about sharing the light within, about the journey itself. With the task complete, A gentle weariness settled over Elara, a sweet and welcome exhaustion. The mountain, which had seemed so formidable, now felt like a kind ancient guardian. The moon moth nudged her gently, its glow indicating it was time to descend. The journey down was swift and peaceful. The treacherous path seemed smoother, the cold winds softer, whispering gentle farewells. The phantoms in the Hall of Reflections were gone, replaced by a gentle breeze that carried the scent of pine and whispered encouragement. The forest below gleamed with a fresh, vibrant glow. The magic Elara had helped to rekindle already beginning to spread, painting the leaves with brighter hues, and making the streams sing with clearer voices. She returned to her village as the first rays of dawn painted the sky in hues of rose and gold. The village, too, seemed brighter, the air crisper, the flowers in the window boxes bursting with newfound vitality, their colors more vivid than before. Her mother was stirring in the kitchen, the familiar comforting scent of fresh bread already wafting through their small cottage. Elara entered, a soft smile on her face, her eyes shining with a quiet wisdom. Her mother turned, her eyes widening slightly, a loving concern quickly replaced by wonder. "Elara, you're back. You look different, my little star-seeker." Elara didn't need to explain everything. She simply hugged her mother, a warmth and confidence radiating from her that was new and profound. "I found it, Mama," she whispered, her voice full of peace. "I found the silver stream, and I learned that the greatest magic was in the bread all along and in the journey to share it." Her mother smiled, a knowing, loving smile. She understood. She always had. That night, as Elara lay in her bed, the moon moth perched on her windowsill, its gentle glow casting dancing shadows on the wall. The world outside hummed with a quiet, renewed magic, a lullaby of the silver stream. Elara felt it in her heart, a steady, comforting glow. She had journeyed far, faced her fears, and brought truth and light back to her world. The silver stream had not given her power, but wisdom. And that, she knew, was the greatest magic of all. She closed her eyes, the melody of the silver stream echoing in her dreams, a lullaby of courage, truth, and unending love, guiding her to a peaceful sleep.